Commander Vextar floated in the control center of the massive Zephyrian station, his blue crystalline body glowing softly as he studied the data flowing across dozens of screens. For 300 years, his job had been the same: watch new species as they learned to travel between stars and figure out how dangerous they might become. Today he was looking at species 7834. The creatures called themselves humans, and they lived on a small blue planet they named Earth. Like all the others before them, they were getting close to real space travel. Soon they would join the galaxy, and the Zephyrian Council needed to know what kind of threat they posed. "The analysis is almost finished," said Quinere, his assistant, as she moved data around with her long, thin fingers. Her silver skin reflected the screen lights as she worked. "These humans look just like all the others we have studied." Vextar nodded and pulled up the military assessment files. Every species followed the same pattern when they reached the stars. First, they built small ships to explore nearby planets. Then they discovered other intelligent life. Finally, they realized they needed big fleets of warships to protect themselves or conquer others. The humans were right on schedule. Their largest ships could carry maybe 50 crew members. Their weapons were basic energy cannons and simple missiles. According to the computer models, they would need at least 2,000 warships to threaten any of the major galactic powers. "Threat level?" asked Vextar, though he already knew the answer. "Minimal for the next 200 to 300 cycles," Quinere replied. "Standard fleet-dependent civilization. They will probably build bigger ships, join trade networks, maybe fight some small wars with their neighbors. Nothing unusual." Vextar approved the report and sent it to the Council archives. Another species catalogued, another potential threat assessed and filed away. In his long career, he had never seen a species break the pattern. Why would these humans be any different? Far across the galaxy on Earth, Dr. James Mitchell wiped his hands on a dirty rag and stepped back to look at his life's work. The spaceship in front of him did not look like much. It was smooth and white, about the size of a large airplane, with no visible weapons or armor. Most people would think it was built for exploration, not war. "Still can't believe they approved the funding," said Lieutenant Sarah Thompson as she ran final checks on the communication systems. Her blonde hair was tied back in a ponytail, and her blue jumpsuit was covered in grease stains from working on the ship for months. "Well, they think we're building a deep space research vessel," Mitchell replied with a smile. He was a thin man with gray hair and thick glasses who looked more like a college professor than a military engineer. "Technically, we are. We're just researching something different than they expect." The ship was called the UES Pandora, and it represented 10 years of secret work by Mitchell's small team. While the rest of humanity focused on building bigger rockets and more powerful weapons, Mitchell had been studying a different kind of warfare entirely. "The test results came back perfect," said Dr. Lisa Parker, looking up from her computer terminal. She was a young woman with brown hair who specialized in computer systems. "The new transmission arrays can penetrate any known communication network." "And the translation protocols?" asked Mitchell. "Better than we hoped," Parker replied. "We can decode and understand any digital language within hours, maybe minutes if their systems are similar to ours." Mitchell nodded and walked around the ship one more time. To most people, it would look like a normal spacecraft with some extra communication equipment. They would never guess that those innocent-looking dishes and transmitters contained technology that could change how wars were fought across the galaxy. "Think the aliens will be surprised?" asked Thompson. "My dear Sarah," Mitchell said, cleaning his glasses, "every military in human history has eventually learned that the biggest, strongest army doesn't always win. The galaxy is about to get the same lesson." The Pandora's crew would be small, just 12 people total. No Marines, no fighter pilots, no weapons officers. Instead, Mitchell had chosen computer experts, linguists, psychologists, and communication specialists. People who understood that sometimes the best way to win a fight was to convince the other side not to fight at all. As the team made final preparations for launch, none of them knew that their work was already being watched. Deep space monitoring stations had detected their test transmissions, and reports were making their way to military commanders across the galaxy. The Hegemony Empire, a collection of aggressive species that had conquered dozens of worlds, was particularly interested. Their spies reported that Earth seemed to be developing new technology, but they were not worried. Humans were still a primitive species with no real fleet to speak of. One human ship, no matter how advanced, could not possibly threaten an empire with thousands of warships. Admiral Krathuex, commander of the Hegemony's Third Fleet, received orders to investigate this human activity. His 200 ships were more than enough to handle any threat from Earth. If the humans had developed something dangerous, he would destroy it before they could build more. The admiral looked at the intelligence reports and laughed. The humans had built exactly one ship, and it appeared to be barely armed. This would be the easiest conquest in hegemony history. He gave orders to prepare for immediate departure to the Sol system. Neither the admiral nor the humans knew that their meeting would change everything the galaxy thought it knew about warfare. The age of massive fleets and overwhelming firepower was about to end, replaced by something much more dangerous, human creativity. The Pandora prepared for its first and most important mission, while across space, 200 alien warships headed toward Earth, confident in their overwhelming advantage. Admiral Krathux stood on the bridge of his flagship, the destroyer of worlds, watching the tactical display with satisfaction. 200 hegemony warships had jumped into the Sol system in perfect formation, their dark hulls bristling with enough weapons to crack planets. Each ship was the size of a small city, carrying thousands of warriors and enough firepower to level continents. The admiral was a tall creature with 4 arms and skin like black metal. His species had conquered 4 to 7 worlds, and he had personally led the attacks on 12 of them. This mission would be his easiest yet. "Sir, we are detecting one human vessel approaching," reported his tactical officer, an insect-like being with multiple eyes. "It appears to be alone." "One ship." Krathux clicked his mandibles in amusement. "Show me." The main screen displayed a small white spacecraft that looked more like a luxury yacht than a warship. It was maybe 1,000th the size of the smallest hegemony vessel, with no visible weapons or armor. The admiral had seen cargo haulers that looked more threatening. "Are there more ships hiding somewhere?" he asked. "No, sir. Deep scans show this is their entire military response. One ship with 12 crew members." Krathux could hardly believe it. Intelligence reports had suggested the humans might have developed new technology, but this was pathetic even by human standards. Perhaps they were surrendering without a fight. On the bridge of the UES Pandora, Captain Michael Reynolds looked at the massive alien fleet through the viewscreen and whistled softly. "Well, they certainly believe in overwhelming force." Reynolds was a calm man in his 40s with brown hair and steady green eyes. He had been chosen to command the Pandora not because he was the best fighter, but because he was the best at staying cool under pressure. 200 ships, sir," reported Lieutenant Robert Williams from the sensor station. "Each one about 50 times our size. They're hailing us." "Put them through," Reynolds said, settling into his captain's chair. "Let's see what they want." The main screen filled with the frightening image of Admiral Krathux. His 4 arms were crossed, and his black eyes glowed with menace. "Attention human vessel," the admiral's voice boomed through the bridge. "I am Admiral Krathux of the Hegemony Empire. Your species has developed technology that concerns us. You will surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded, or we will destroy your pathetic world." Captain Reynolds smiled politely. "Admiral, I appreciate you coming all this way for a chat. Before we discuss surrender, would you mind showing us what we're up against? Perhaps a demonstration of your weapons?" The alien admiral looked confused. "A demonstration? Well, we've never seen hegemony technology in action," Reynolds explained pleasantly. "That asteroid over there would make a good target. We'd like to know exactly how outmatched we are." Behind Reynolds, Dr. Emma Watson worked quietly at her station. She was a young woman with red hair who looked like she belonged in a science lab, not on a warship. Her fingers moved quickly over her controls, making final adjustments to systems that the aliens could not detect. Admiral Krathux found the human request strange, but he was happy to show these primitives what real power looked like. "Very well. All ships, target the asteroid. Full bombardment." 200 warships turned their weapons toward a small rock floating several thousand kilometers away. Energy cannons, plasma torpedoes, and fusion missiles all fired at once. The asteroid vanished in a brilliant flash of light and energy that lit up the entire system. "Impressive," Reynolds said, though his heart was racing. The amount of firepower he had just witnessed could indeed destroy Earth several times over. "Thank you for the demonstration. Now, if you don't mind, it's our turn." Admiral Krathux laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Your turn? What can one tiny ship possibly do against my fleet?" "You'd be surprised," Reynolds replied. "Emma, you may begin." Dr. Watson pressed a single button on her console. To the aliens, it looked like the Pandora was simply sending out a communication signal, the kind of transmission any ship might use to surrender or negotiate. But this was no ordinary signal. For 10 years, Dr. Mitchell's team had studied every piece of alien technology they could find. They had learned that most advanced civilizations connected all their systems together for maximum efficiency. Ships shared navigation data, weapons systems coordinated with each other, and central computers managed everything from life support to communications. The humans had built something the galaxy had never seen, a signal that could speak to any computer system in any language, and convince that system to do whatever the humans wanted. Within minutes, strange things began happening to the hegemony fleet. Navigation computers started giving conflicting directions. 3 ships collided when their autopilot sent them toward the same coordinates. Weapons systems began targeting random objects, including other hegemony vessels. What is happening? Admiral Krathux demanded as alarms began sounding throughout his ship. Sir, our computers are malfunctioning, his technical officer reported. All of them. The entire fleet is experiencing system failures. On the Pandora, Dr. Watson monitored the chaos with professional interest. Their security is actually quite good, she told Captain Reynolds. But they never considered that someone might convince their computers to ignore that security. The hegemony ships were now firing on each other as their weapons systems received false target information. Communication networks that had been designed to coordinate the fleet were now spreading confusion and panic. Some ships were spinning helplessly as their navigation systems shut down, while others were accelerating toward empty space with no way to stop. How? Admiral Krathux screamed into his communicator. How is one small ship destroying my entire fleet? Captain Reynolds' voice came back calm and friendly. We're not destroying anything, Admiral. We're just asking your computers to help us out. Turns out they're very cooperative once you know how to talk to them. The chaos in the hegemony fleet grew worse by the hour. Admiral Krathux watched in horror as his mighty warships turned into floating disasters. The ship next to his flagship was spinning like a toy, its crew unable to control anything. Another vessel was firing its weapons randomly into space while its captain screamed for help over the radio. Sir, we have lost control of 70% of our systems, reported his chief engineer, a gray-skinned alien whose 3 hands shook with fear. The computers are not responding to any commands. It is like they have forgotten who we are. Krathux slammed his 4 fists on the command console. In 3 decades of warfare, he had never seen anything like this. His enemies had always fought with honor, using bigger guns and stronger shields. This was something different, something wrong. Can we fight back? He demanded. Sir, our weapons systems think the human ship is friendly, his weapons officer explained helplessly. When I try to target them, the computer says I am making a mistake. It will not let me fire. On the bridge of the Pandora, the human crew worked calmly at their stations. Dr. Emma Watson monitored hundreds of data streams flowing from the alien fleet. Her screens showed ship systems, crew communications, and computer networks all tangled together in digital chaos. Their command structure is completely broken, she reported to Captain Reynolds. The computers are getting so many conflicting orders that they have stopped following any orders at all. Dr. Lisa Parker looked up from her psychology station. She was a small woman with dark hair who studied how different species thought and acted. The crew members are starting to panic. Their training never prepared them for this kind of warfare. Captain Reynolds nodded. The humans had spent years studying military history, learning from every conflict their species had ever fought. They knew that the biggest army did not always win. Sometimes the smart army won by making the big army defeat itself. What about their communications? Reynolds asked. That's the interesting part, said Lieutenant Robert Williams, grinning at his console. We're not just jamming their signals. We're changing them. When the Admiral gives an order, his ships receive a completely different message. This was the genius of human warfare. Other species built bigger weapons and stronger defenses, always trying to overpower their enemies. Humans had learned to fight smarter, not harder. Instead of destroying the hegemony fleet, they were turning it into their ally. Admiral Krathux tried once more to contact his ships. All vessels, retreat to minimum safe distance and regroup. But the message his fleet received was completely different. All vessels, begin immediate surrender procedures and prepare to abandon ship. Across the hegemony fleet, confusion spread like wildfire. Some captains thought they were under attack by invisible enemies. Others believed their own admiral had betrayed them. A few started following orders that nobody had actually given. Sir, the 3rd Squadron is requesting permission to surrender, his communications officer reported with disbelief. Surrender? To who? To us, sir. They think we ordered them to give up. Dr. Watson had programmed the Pandora's computers to learn the alien language faster than any human could speak it. Within hours, the ship understood not just what the aliens were saying, but how they thought, how they made decisions, and what they feared most. Their biggest weakness is that they trust their machines completely, Watson explained to her crewmates. They have never had to worry about their computers lying to them. The psychological warfare was just as effective as the technical attack. Dr. Parker had studied hegemony culture and learned that their society was built on strict hierarchy and absolute obedience. When that structure broke down, the aliens did not know how to respond. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the flagship," Williams reported. Admiral Krathux appeared on the main screen, and he looked broken. His black eyes were wide with fear, and his forearms trembled as he spoke. "Human vessel, what do you want from us? We came here to conquer your world, but you have turned our own ships against us. How is this possible?" Captain Reynolds leaned forward in his chair, his expression calm but serious. "Admiral, you made a mistake. You thought warfare was about having the biggest fleet and the most powerful weapons. But humans learned long ago that the best victories come from understanding your enemy better than they understand themselves." "Understand us? You barely know we exist." "We know more than you think," Reynolds replied. "We know your ships share all their data through central networks. We know your crews follow orders without question. We know your computers have never been taught to doubt what they hear. Most importantly, we know you never considered that someone might use all of this against you." Dr. Mitchell had designed the Pandora systems based on a simple idea: every strength could become a weakness if approached correctly. The hegemony's advanced networks made them efficient, but also vulnerable. Their disciplined crews were effective, but also easy to confuse. Their powerful computers were smart, but had never learned to recognize deception. "What are your terms?" Admiral Krathux asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Simple," Reynolds replied. "Take your fleet and go home. Tell your empire that humans are not interested in conquest or domination. We just want to be left alone. If you try to attack Earth again, we will do this again, only worse." "And if we refuse?" Captain Reynolds smiled sadly. "Admiral, look around you. Half your ships are already trying to surrender to empty space. The other half think you're the enemy. Your entire fleet is helpless, and we haven't fired a single shot. How much worse do you think we can make things?" The alien admiral looked at his ruined fleet and realized the terrible truth. The humans had not just defeated him, they had made him defeat himself. 3 months after the hegemony fleet limped home in disgrace, the news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Most civilizations could not believe what they heard. One human ship had defeated 200 alien warships without firing a single weapon? It seemed impossible. The Crystalline Consortium was the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. Their ships were built from living crystal that could repair itself, and their computer systems used quantum encryption that was supposed to be unbreakable. Fleet Commander ZY Xandra decided it was time to restore order to the galaxy and show everyone that the human victory had been a lucky accident. "The hegemony were fools," she announced to her officers as her 50 warships prepared to jump to human space. ZY Xandra was a tall being made of blue crystal, with light flowing through her body like water. They used primitive networks that any child could hack. "Our systems are completely different." Her chief technician, a creature of green crystal named Velthara, agreed completely. "Commander, our quantum computers are isolated from all external signals. Even if the humans try the same trick, they will find nothing to attack." The consortium fleet was beautiful to look at. Each ship seemed carved from precious gems, glowing within a light and humming with barely contained energy. Their weapons could slice through planets, and their defenses had never been broken by any known force. But the humans had been studying consortium technology for months. In a small research station orbiting Earth's moon, Dr. Jennifer Adams worked day and night to understand how these crystal beings thought and fought. She was a young woman with blonde hair who specialized in alien psychology, and she had discovered something very interesting about the consortium. "They're not really individual beings," she explained to Captain David Thompson, the new commander of the UES Pandora. Thompson was Sarah's younger brother, a quiet man with brown eyes who had spent years studying computer science before joining the military. "What do you mean?" Thompson asked, reviewing the data on his tablet. "Their minds are connected through quantum networks," Adams continued. "Each crystal being is like a single brain cell in a much larger mind. They think together, decide together, act together. It makes them incredibly smart and efficient. And incredibly vulnerable," added Dr. Marcus Wright, the ship's new technical officer. He was a tall man with black hair who had helped design the Pandora's computer systems. If we can't hack their networks directly, maybe we can give them something else to think about. The consortium fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system in perfect formation. Commander ZY Xandra was confident that this would be quick and easy. The humans had one small ship against 50 crystal warships that could think and react faster than any organic crew. Human vessel, she broadcast as the Pandora approached, you will surrender immediately. We have studied your previous battle and taken steps to prevent your cheap tricks. Captain Thompson appeared on her view screen, looking relaxed and friendly. Commander ZY Xandra, welcome to our solar system. Before we get started, I have a question for you. You are in no position to ask questions, human. Oh, I think you'll find this interesting, Thompson replied with a smile. We've been wondering, if your quantum computers are so advanced, surely they could solve any problem we gave them. ZY Xandra was confused but curious. The consortium took great pride in their intellectual abilities. Of course. Our minds can process information at speeds your primitive brains cannot imagine. Wonderful, Thompson said. Would like to send you a little puzzle to solve. Think of it as a test of your abilities. Before ZY Xandra could respond, the Pandora began transmitting what looked like a simple mathematical equation. But this was no ordinary math problem. Dr. Wright had designed it based on years of studying human consciousness and artificial intelligence. The equation appeared simple at first, but the deeper you looked into it, the more complex it became. The consortium's quantum computers immediately began working on the problem. To them, it looked like an encoded message about human consciousness, the secret of how organic minds could create thoughts and feelings. This was exactly the kind of mystery that curious minds could not resist. Interesting, ZY Xandra said after a few minutes. This appears to be more complex than it first seemed. Take all the time you need, Thompson replied cheerfully. By the end of the first day, the consortium ships were moving more slowly as their computers dedicated more processing power to the puzzle. The crystal beings found the problem fascinating. Every time they thought they had solved one part, 3 new questions appeared. Dr. Adams watched the alien fleet through the Pandora sensors and smiled. They're completely absorbed in the problem. Their ships are basically on autopilot now. What exactly did we send them? Asked Thompson. A question about consciousness that has no real answer, Wright explained. We made it look like the secret to human intelligence, but it's actually designed to use more and more computer power the deeper you go. Their quantum minds are trying to solve the unsolvable. By day 3, the consortium fleet had stopped responding to outside signals entirely. The crystal beings were so focused on the puzzle that they ignored everything else, including orders from their commander. Fleet, respond immediately. ZY Xandra commanded, but her ships did not answer. Their crews were lost in thought, trying to understand the mystery the humans had given them. On day 5, even Commander ZY Xandra herself began to feel the pull of the puzzle. Her own quantum mind wanted to join the collective effort to solve it. She found herself staring at the equations for hours, seeing new patterns and possibilities in every line. By day 6, the entire consortium fleet was completely helpless. 50 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy floated in space like sleeping giants, their crews lost in an endless loop of thought and calculation. Captain Thompson opened a channel to the flagship. Commander, are you still there? ZY Xandra's voice came back dreamy and distant. Human, what have you done to us? We gave your minds exactly what they wanted, Thompson replied gently. A problem worthy of your intelligence. Your computers should be free to think about other things in maybe 30 or 40 years. The galaxy's second most powerful fleet had been defeated by human curiosity. News of humanity's second impossible victory traveled faster than light across the galaxy's communication networks. On Zephyria, Commander Vextar stared at the reports with his crystalline form flickering in disbelief. The Crystalline Consortium, the most advanced civilization in known space, had been defeated by a single human ship without a single shot being fired. This cannot be accurate, he told Quinara as she processed incoming data from across the galaxy. First the hegemony, now the consortium. How can one species with one ship defeat entire fleets? The reports are confirmed from multiple sources, his assistant replied, her silver skin pale with worry. The humans did not destroy the consortium ships. They made them think too much. Within days, the galaxy's reaction was swift and terrifying. The Vorthan Trade Empire immediately closed all shipping lanes near human space. The Mechanical Collective recalled their exploration fleets to home systems. The Scion Federation put their entire military on highest alert and began building defenses around their core worlds. Fear spread like a plague across civilized space. If humans could defeat the hegemony's brute force and the consortium's advanced technology, what hope did anyone else have? Panic buying emptied markets as species prepared for the worst. Some civilizations began building massive bunkers, while others started planning evacuation fleets to unexplored regions of space. On Earth, President Margaret Wilson stood before the United Nations General Assembly with her expression of deep concern. She was a tall woman with gray hair who had spent her career trying to bring peace to her own planet. Now she faced a problem no human leader had ever imagined. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, looking out at representatives from nearly every nation on Earth, "we have accidentally terrified half the galaxy. Our defensive actions have been interpreted as acts of aggression by species we have never even met." Dr. James Mitchell, now Earth's first director of xenological affairs, stood at a podium covered with reports from deep space monitoring stations. His gray hair had gotten even grayer in the past months as he tried to understand the scope of the problem they had created. "The situation is worse than we thought," he explained to the assembly. 14 major civilizations have completely cut off contact with the outside galaxy. Trade routes that have existed for thousands of years have been abandoned. Some species are even discussing surrendering to us before we attack them. Admiral Michael Reynolds, recently promoted after his success with the Pandora, presented the military perspective. "We built one ship to defend Earth, and somehow convinced the entire galaxy that we are unstoppable conquerors. Every day we receive surrender messages from civilizations we did not even know existed." The irony was almost laughable. Humanity had spent centuries dreaming of joining a galactic community, imagining peaceful trade and cultural exchange with alien species. Instead, their first contact had made them the most feared species in known space. President Wilson made the decision that would change everything. "We need to show the galaxy who we really are. Not conquerors, but explorers. Not destroyers, but builders." 6 months later, Captain Rebecca Foster stood on the bridge of the newly refitted UES Pandora as it approached the center of the galaxy. Foster was a calm woman with brown hair and kind eyes who had been chosen specifically for her diplomatic skills rather than her military training. The ship had been completely rebuilt for its new mission. Gone were the complex hacking systems and psychological warfare equipment. In their place were advanced translation computers, cultural databases, and communication arrays designed for peaceful contact rather than military conquest. Dr. Emily Watson, the ship's new director of galactic relations, worked at a station surrounded by screens showing languages, customs, and histories of dozens of alien civilizations. She was Mitchell's daughter, a young woman with her father's intelligence and her mother's warm personality. "Are you sure this will work?" Foster asked as they prepared to broadcast their message across every communication network in the galaxy. "It has to," Watson replied, making final adjustments to the transmission systems. "We need to show them that humans are not the monsters they think we are." The message that went out that day was unlike anything the galaxy had ever received. Instead of demands for surrender or threats of destruction, it was an invitation to friendship. To all civilizations listening, Captain Foster's voice carried across space to millions of worlds, "We are the humans of Earth. We know many of you fear us because our ships have disabled your fleets. We want you to understand something very important: we never wanted to fight anyone at all." The transmission continued for hours, explaining human history, culture, and dreams. Foster talked about humanity's love of exploration and discovery. Watson discussed their desire to learn from other species and share knowledge. They showed images of Earth's beauty, its art, its music, and its people working together in peace. "Our ship's real purpose was never warfare," Foster explained. "We built technology to understand and communicate, not to control and destroy. We learned your languages not to trick you, but to talk with you as equals. We studied your cultures not to find weaknesses, but to appreciate your differences." Most importantly, they made an offer that no conquering species had ever made: "We invite every civilization to join us in creating the first galactic council where every species has an equal voice. Not ruled by the strongest fleet or the biggest empire, but governed by cooperation and understanding." Dr. Watson watched her instruments as responses began flooding in from across the galaxy. At first, there were only a few cautious replies. Then dozens. Then hundreds. The first ship to respond was from a small species called the Gentle Builders, who had been hiding from galactic politics for centuries. Then came the peaceful traders, followed by the Scholar Collective. Within days, even some of the major powers began sending diplomatic vessels. "Look at that," Foster said, pointing to the view screen as ship after ship emerged from hyperspace. Not warships bristling with weapons, but exploration vessels, trade ships, and diplomatic craft from species across the galaxy. The first Galactic Council convened in Earth's orbit 3 months later. Representatives from 47 different civilizations gathered to create something new, a government based on cooperation rather than conquest, understanding rather than fear. As Watson watched delegates from across the galaxy work together to solve problems through discussion instead of warfare, she realized something important. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy through superior firepower. They had done something much more powerful. They had shown everyone a better way to live together. The age of galactic warfare was over, replaced by an era of peace that would last for generations. And it had all started with humans learning the most important lesson of all: sometimes the greatest victories come from choosing not to fight.